The pen felt like a weapon in Ethan Cole's trembling hand.
It's not that simple, and
Across
you
the
know
mahogany desk sat Richard Ashford, billionaire real estate mogul, whose cold smile promised both salvation and damnation. The contract between them might as well have been written in blood. "Sign it, Mr. Cole," Richard said, sliding the document closer. "Or by tomorrow morning, every firm from here to Tokyo will know you're unhireable. I've already made the calls. One word from me, and your career is finished before it begins." Ethan's phone buzzed in his pocket. Sarah. His Sarah, 7 months pregnant with their daughter, probably asking what he wanted for dinner. His chest tightened until he could barely breathe. The architectural designs he'd spent 5 years perfecting lay scattered across Richard's desk. His dreams reduced to leverage. "Why?" Ethan's voice cracked. "Why me? Why her?" Richard leaned back in his leather chair, fingers steepled. "My daughter Victoria needs stability. You need opportunity. This business, nothing personal. 5 years of marriage, 1 heir, and you'll have more money than you could spend in 3 lifetimes. Your little teacher girlfriend and that baby, they'll be comfortable. I'll make sure of it. She's not just some girlfriend. We're planning to get married. We're having a child. Then think of that child." Richard's voice dropped to something almost paternal. "What kind of future can you give her? Your student loans are crushing you. That apartment you rent is barely suitable for 1 person, let alone 3. I'm offering you a way out. A way to give your daughter everything. Before you find out what choice Ethan makes, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. This story takes twists you won't see coming, and you won't want to miss what happens next." Ethan spent 3 days researching Richard Ashford. Every article confirmed what he already feared. Ashford Industries owned half the commercial real estate in 3 states. The man had connections that reached into government, law enforcement, and every major corporation. Former employees who'd crossed him disappeared into obscurity, their careers destroyed by mysterious scandals or sudden financial ruin. One architect who'd rejected a project offer had been accused of plagiarism so thoroughly documented that he'd lost everything. The charges were eventually dropped, but the damage was permanent. Richard Ashford didn't make empty threats. Sarah found Ethan on their apartment balcony at 2 in the morning, staring at the city lights. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, her pregnant belly pressed against his back. "You've barely slept in days," she whispered. "Talk to me." "The Ashford Project," Ethan said, the lie tasting like poison. "It's bigger than I thought. More complicated. We'll figure it out together. We always do." She kissed his shoulder. "Emma's kicking. Want to feel?" Ethan turned and placed his hand on her stomach, feeling his daughter move beneath his palm. Tears burned his eyes. How could he choose between them? How could he possibly explain what Richard was asking him to do? He couldn't, so he made the choice alone. The meeting with Richard's lawyers lasted 4 hours. The contract was ironclad. 5 years minimum. Produce 1 heir. Maintain public appearances as a devoted husband. Any attempt to divorce or reveal the coercive nature of the agreement would result in financial penalties so severe they'd destroy not just Ethan, but anyone connected to him. The contract even included provisions for Sarah, anonymous payments that would ensure she and Emma never wanted for anything. "She'll hate me," Ethan said, staring at the signature line. "She'll get over it," Richard replied. "People always do." Sign. Ethan signed. Breaking up with Sarah was the hardest thing he'd ever done. He'd rehearsed the words 100 times, but nothing prepared him for the reality. They sat on the couch where they'd spent countless evenings planning their future, and he destroyed it all with carefully constructed lies. "I don't love you anymore," Ethan said, the words cutting his throat like glass. "This was a mistake. All of it." Sarah's face went pale. "You don't mean that." "Ethan, we're having a baby in 2 months. Whatever's wrong, we can fix it." "There's nothing to fix. I don't want this life. I don't want you. Stop it." Her voice broke. "Stop lying to me. I know you. Something happened. Someone's making you do this." Ethan forced himself to meet her eyes, to let her see nothing but cold indifference he didn't feel. "No one's making me do anything. I'm choosing this. I met someone else. Someone who can give me the life I actually want." "You're lying." Tears streamed down Sarah's face. "Look at me and tell me you don't love our baby." That almost broke him. His hands clenched into fists, nails digging into his palms. "The baby was an accident. You know that. I never wanted to be trapped like this." Sarah's sob was a physical blow. She stood, one hand protectively cradling her stomach. "Get out. If this is really what you want, Get out of our lives. Ethan stood, pulling an envelope from his jacket. Inside was a cashier's check for $200,000. Richard's first payment. For the baby. For whatever you need. Sarah stared at the check like it was a snake. I don't want your money. I don't want anything from you. Take it anyway. Ethan set it on the table. Consider it child support in advance. He walked to the door, every step feeling like walking through concrete. His hand touched the doorknob. Ethan. Sarah's voice was small, broken. When you wake up tomorrow and remember who you really are, when you remember us, it'll be too late. I hope whoever she is, I hope she's worth destroying everything we built. Ethan opened the door and walked out without looking back. If he'd turned around, if he'd seen Sarah collapse onto the couch, her whole body shaking with sobs, he would have run back. He would have torn up the contract and faced whatever consequences Richard brought down on them. But he didn't turn around. 3 years later, Ethan stood in the marble foyer of the Ashford estate, straightening his tie for another charity gala. Victoria descended the grand staircase in a designer gown that cost more than most people's cars, her smile brittle and cold. Try to look happy tonight, she said, not bothering to kiss him. Daddy's investors will be here. We need to maintain appearances. When don't we maintain appearances? Ethan muttered. Victoria's eyes flashed dangerously. What was that? Nothing. You look beautiful. I look expensive. There's a difference. She brushed past him toward the waiting limousine. And Ethan? That woman called again. The one who keeps asking about anonymous donations to her school. Tell your secretary to block her number. Ethan's heart stopped. What woman? Some teacher. Sarah something. Apparently someone's been funding her entire classroom for 3 years, and she wants to thank them personally. Victoria's smile turned cruel. Imagine that. I told Daddy's people to cut off the payments. If you're going to have a charity case, at least pick one who knows when to be grateful silently. The gala passed in a blur of forced smiles and hollow conversations. Ethan played his part perfectly, the devoted husband, the brilliant architect who'd married into the Ashford dynasty. No one saw the cage. No one looked close enough to see the desperation in his eyes. Later that night, alone in his separate bedroom, Ethan pulled out his phone and opened the hidden folder. Pictures of Emma, now 3 years old, captured from a distance. Birthday parties he'd watched from across the park. Her first day of preschool, photographed from his car. He'd never held his daughter. Never heard her voice except in videos he'd found on Sarah's social media before she'd made everything private. The payments he'd been sending through anonymous accounts had been his only connection. Now even that was gone. His phone buzzed. A text from the private investigator he'd secretly hired months ago, just to ensure Sarah and Emma were safe. Asterisk new development. Your wife hired her own PI. They're tracking your accounts. Recommend you cease all contact. Asterisk. Ethan deleted the message and threw his phone across the room. The next morning, Victoria sat across from him at breakfast, studying him with calculating eyes. She was pregnant, 3 months along with the heir Richard demanded. The baby that would seal Ethan's fate for another 15 years at minimum. You're very good at hiding things, Victoria said, spreading jam on her toast. But not good enough. I know about the money. I know about the teacher and her bastard. Ethan's blood ran cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Please, don't insult my intelligence. Victoria sipped her coffee, perfectly calm. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? $200,000 here, $50,000 there. School supplies, medical bills, even her car payment. You've been playing the secret hero for 3 years. She's the mother of my child. And I'm your wife, carrying your legitimate child. The child that matters. Victoria leaned forward, her voice dropping to something venomous. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to forget that woman and her daughter exist. You're going to be the perfect husband and father to our son. And if I ever find out you've contacted her again, I'll make sure she loses everything. Her job, her home, custody of that little girl. Daddy can make it all disappear. You're insane.
I'm practical.
And I'm tired of competing with a ghost. Victoria stood, smoothing her dress over her barely visible baby bump. I've hired someone to keep tabs on her. If you try to warn her, I'll know. If you try to help her, I'll know. She's going to learn what it means to be forgotten. Ethan watched her leave, nausea rising in his throat. He'd thought he could keep Sarah and Emma safe from a distance. He'd thought his sacrifice meant something. But he'd only made things worse. The private investigator Victoria hired was thorough. Within 2 weeks, he'd located Sarah's apartment, her routine, everything about her life. She'd moved on remarkably. There was a man, Daniel, a guidance counselor at her school. He was good with Emma. The photos the investigator provided showed them at the zoo, at the park, looking like a real family. It should have made Ethan happy. Instead, it destroyed him. Victoria studied the photos with dark satisfaction. She's pregnant again. How sweet. Her little family is growing. Leave her alone, Ethan said quietly. You've won. I'm here.
I'm trapped.
Just leave her alone. I will. As long as you remember your place. Victoria dropped the photos on his desk. But I think I'd like to meet her. Just once. Woman to woman. To make sure she understands that you're mine now. Victoria, please. It's not a request. I'm going to visit her next week. You can come if you'd like. Or you can stay here and wonder what I'll say. She smiled, touching her stomach. After all, we're going to be connected forever now. She should know what kind of man you really are. The kind who abandons pregnant girlfriends for money. After Victoria left, Ethan tried calling the investigator Sarah had befriended, the one who'd been helping protect her. The number was disconnected. He tried Sarah's old number, knowing it wouldn't work. Disconnected. He tried her school, asking to leave a message. They told him she was on leave, preparing for her new baby. He had no way to warn her that Victoria was coming. No way to stop what was about to happen. Sarah's apartment was modest but warm, filled with Emma's artwork and photographs of a life rebuilt from ashes. She was 8 months pregnant, moving slowly as she prepared lunch when the doorbell rang. The woman at the door was impeccably dressed, designer everything, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Sarah Mitchell?
I'm Victoria Ashford.
I believe you knew my husband, Ethan Cole. Sarah's blood turned to ice. For 3 years, she'd tried to forget that name. For 3 years, she'd rebuilt herself into someone stronger. And now here stood the woman Ethan had left her for. I don't want any trouble, Sarah said, one hand instinctively protecting her belly. No trouble. Just a conversation. Victoria invited herself inside, looking around the small apartment with barely concealed disdain. Cute place. Very cozy. Emma appeared from her bedroom, clutching a stuffed rabbit. Mommy, who's that? Go to your room, sweetie, Sarah said softly. Victoria's eyes locked on Emma, and something ugly flickered across her face. She looks just like him. Those eyes. That's unfortunate. You need to leave. Now. In a minute. First, I want you to understand something. Victoria moved closer, her voice dropping. Everything you've had for the past 3 years? The money, the anonymous donations, the mysteriously paid bills? That was Ethan. Playing the guilty hero while living in my mansion. Sleeping in my bed. Spending my father's money. Sarah's legs felt weak. What are you talking about? Oh, he didn't tell you? About the contract. Victoria laughed, a harsh sound. My father bought him. Offered him millions to marry me and produce an heir. And your precious Ethan? He took the deal. Signed away 5 years of his life and abandoned you without a second thought. You're lying. But Sarah's voice wavered. The expensive check Ethan had left. The way he'd changed so suddenly. The anonymous help that had appeared just when she needed it most. Victoria pulled out her phone, showing Sarah photographs. Ethan at charity galas. Ethan cutting ribbons at building openings. Ethan with his arm around Victoria at their wedding. Does this look like I'm lying? He chose this. He chose money over you. If that's true, then why are you here? Why tell me this? Because I'm pregnant with his child. The child that matters. And I wanted you to know that every dollar you've accepted came from blood money. Came from him selling himself and abandoning his own daughter. Victoria's smile turned vicious. How does it feel, knowing you've been living off his guilt? Sarah's vision blurred with tears. 3 years of questions suddenly had answers, and each one cut deeper than the last. Get out of my house. I'm not finished. You see, Ethan's been trying to help you behind my back. Secret payments, hiring people to watch over you. He thinks he's being noble. I think he's being pathetic. Victoria stepped closer, close enough that Sarah could smell her expensive perfume. So I'm here to make something very clear. Stay away from my husband. Stop accepting his money. Forget he exists. Because if I find out he's tried to contact you, if I find out you've reached out to him, I will destroy you. My father owns this city. He can make you disappear. I don't want anything from either of you, Sarah said, her voice shaking with rage and grief. I don't want his money or his guilt or anything else. Just get out. Make me. It happened fast. Sarah moved toward the door to open it to force Victoria out. But Victoria was blocking the way, and they were at the top of the stairs leading down to the apartment entrance. Victoria said something else, something cruel about Emma, about Ethan, about how Sarah was nothing but a mistake he'd corrected. Sarah pushed her, just pushed her toward the door, trying to create space. But Victoria grabbed her arm, nails digging into flesh, and suddenly they were both off balance. Sarah fell backward against the wall, her pregnant belly protected by instinct. Victoria, in her high heels and designer dress, stumbled forward. Her eyes went wide with surprise and fear. She tumbled down the stairs. The sound was horrible. Thumping, crashing, a scream cut short. Sarah stood frozen at the top, watching Victoria's body come to rest at the bottom, bent at an impossible angle. "Mommy!" Emma's small voice came from behind her. "Stay in your room, baby. Don't come out. Don't look." Sarah's hands shook as she dialed 911, her mind unable to process what had just happened. The ambulance arrived within minutes. Paramedics rushed Victoria away. Police took Sarah's statement. She told them everything, the threats, the confrontation, the accident. They assured her it wasn't her fault, that Victoria had lost her balance, that pregnant women needed to be careful about stress. But as Sarah sat in her apartment, holding Emma close while police officers finished their investigation, her mind raced. She thought about the contract Victoria had mentioned, about Ethan's sacrifice, about 3 years of lies and money and pain. And she thought about the private investigator who'd befriended her months ago, when she'd noticed someone following her. The one who'd helped her install hidden cameras in her apartment after her apartment had been broken into. Cameras she'd forgotten were running. Cameras that had recorded everything. Don't forget to like this video and drop a comment telling us what you think Sarah should do next. The story gets even more intense from here. Richard Ashford arrived at the hospital like an avenging angel, his security team clearing the way. Victoria was in surgery, and the doctors' faces told him everything he needed to know before they said a word. "The baby?" he demanded. "I'm sorry, Mr. Ashford. We couldn't save the child." Richard's face turned to stone. He pulled out his phone and made a single call. "Find Ethan Cole. Bring him here. Now." Ethan arrived an hour later, his face gray with shock. "Is she alive?" "Barely. But my grandson is dead." Richard's voice was cold enough to freeze blood. "Because of that woman. Because of your past. This is your fault." "What happened? Where's Sarah? Is Emma okay?" "Your little girlfriend killed my grandson. Pushed my daughter down the stairs." Richard stepped closer, his voice dropping to something dangerous. "I'm going to destroy her. I'm going to use every clause in your contract, every connection I have, to make sure she loses everything. Starting with custody of that bastard child of yours." "No." Ethan's voice was flat, dead. "You're not touching them. You don't have a choice. The contract. The contract was coercion, blackmail. And I'm done." Ethan pulled out his phone, his hands shaking. "I recorded everything. Every conversation with your lawyers. Every threat you made. I've been documenting this prison sentence for 3 years. And if you go anywhere near Sarah or Emma, I'm releasing all of it." Richard laughed, a harsh sound. "You think anyone will care?"
I'm Richard Ashford.
"You're nobody. Maybe. But I have to try." Sarah stood in her apartment, staring at the video footage from her hidden cameras. The private investigator, Marcus, sat beside her, his face grim. "This changes everything," Marcus said. "She threatened you. She admitted to the coercion. She blocked Ethan from helping you. This is evidence." "Evidence of what?" "She's the one in the hospital. Her baby's dead." Sarah's voice cracked. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I know. But she came here to hurt you. The cameras prove it." Marcus hesitated. "There's something else. I've been investigating the Ashford family for months. Not just for you. For other people they've destroyed. If you release this footage, if you go public with what Victoria said about the contract, it could bring down their entire operation. I don't care about bringing anyone down. I just want my daughter to be safe. Then this is how you do it. Richard Ashford will come for you. He'll use his money and power to paint you as a monster. But if the truth comes out first, if people see what kind of man he really is, you have a chance." Sarah looked at Emma, sleeping peacefully in her room, unaware that her world was about to explode. She thought about Ethan, the man she'd loved, who'd sacrificed everything and gained nothing. She thought about the contract, the coercion, the 3 years of secret help that had kept her and Emma alive. "Do it," she said. Release everything. The video went viral within hours. Victoria's confession about the contract, her threats against Sarah, her cruel words about Emma. The media exploded. Within days, other stories emerged. Other people Richard Ashford had coerced or destroyed. Other lives ruined by his empire. Former employees came forward. Competitors he'd crushed through illegal means. Even politicians he'd bought began distancing themselves. The Ashford empire, built on intimidation and corruption, began to crumble. Victoria, released from the hospital and facing assault charges, had a complete mental breakdown. The combination of losing her baby, the public humiliation, and her father's fury destroyed what was left of her sanity. She was institutionalized, her screams about Ethan and Sarah echoing through hospital halls. Richard tried to fight back. Lawyers, public relations firms, paid testimonials. But the evidence was overwhelming. His business partners abandoned him. His political connections evaporated. Investigations into his business practices revealed decades of corruption. The contract Ethan signed was invalidated by a judge who called it one of the most egregious examples of human trafficking disguised as business I've ever seen. Ethan was free, but freedom came at a cost. 2 months later, Ethan sat on a park bench, watching Emma play on the swings. Sarah's new partner, Daniel, pushed her higher while Sarah, now with a newborn son, watched from nearby. They looked like a family, a real family. Sarah noticed Ethan and walked over slowly. They hadn't spoken since everything came out, since the truth destroyed so many lies. She asks about you, Sarah said quietly, sitting beside him but not too close. She saw you on the news, asked if you were her daddy. What did you tell her? The truth, that you are, that you loved us, that you made a terrible choice trying to protect us. Sarah's voice was soft, sad. She wants to meet you, properly. Does she hate me? She's 3. She doesn't understand hate yet. She just knows she has a daddy who's been away for a long time. Sarah finally looked at him. I don't hate you either.
I'm angry. I'm hurt.
But I don't hate you. I don't expect forgiveness. Good. Because I'm not ready to give it. Sarah stood. But Emma deserves to know her father. So we'll figure something out. Supervised visits. Therapy. Whatever it takes. Thank you. Ethan's voice broke. Don't thank me. Just be better. Be the man you were before Richard Ashford turned you into someone else. Sarah paused. The money you sent, all those years, saved us. I need you to know that. She walked back to her family, leaving Ethan alone on the bench. Emma waved at him from the swings, a bright smile on her face that looked exactly like Sarah's. Ethan waved back, tears streaming down his face. He had his freedom. He had his career back. He even had a chance, however small, to know his daughter. But he'd lost 3 years he could never reclaim. 3 years of first words and first steps and bedtime stories. The Ashford empire collapsed completely 6 months later. Richard died of a heart attack, alone in a mansion being seized by federal agents. Victoria remained institutionalized. The contract marriages Richard had arranged for other business deals came to light, dozens of them, destroying families and reputations. Sarah used her platform to advocate for victims of coercive contracts and economic abuse. She became a voice for people trapped by circumstances and power imbalances. Her story inspired others to come forward. Ethan rebuilt his architectural career slowly, designing affordable housing projects instead of luxury developments. He saw Emma every other weekend, watched her grow, tried to earn back what he'd thrown away. One evening, 2 years after everything fell apart, Emma ran to him at pickup and threw her arms around his legs. Daddy, Daddy, I drew you a picture at school. It was the first time she'd called him Daddy without prompting. Ethan knelt down, holding his daughter close, and finally let himself believe that maybe, eventually, there could be redemption. Not the fairy tale ending where everything was forgiven and forgotten, but something real, something earned through years of showing up and being present and proving he was more than the worst choice he'd ever made. Sarah watched from the doorway, Daniel's arm around her waist. She didn't smile at Ethan, but she didn't look away either. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe never. But it was acknowledgement. It was a chance. And sometimes a chance was enough. If you made it to the end of the story, thank you for watching. This tale of sacrifice, manipulation, and the long road to redemption reminds us that some choices echo forever. Make sure to subscribe for more compelling stories. Hit that like button if this one moved you, and comment below telling us what you would have done in Ethan's position. Would you have signed the contract? Let us know. And remember, the truth always comes out eventually. The only question is how much damage it does along the way.